Chicka chicka. It's episode 41. We're here, checking it out with our philosophy podcast, going heavy on the philosophy at the end of this one.
It kind of went long, actually.
Yeah, we started going off on waxing philosophical, so if you stay tuned to the end, you'll understand the secrets of the universe even better.
Yeah.
So, if you haven't heard of Ash L, this is his new track. I actually made the cover art for it, so check that out. youtube.com/AshLmusic, ASH, and soundcloud.com/AshLmusic.
Cool.
Summer hit, got it. Mm-hmm. So, what can we get to support the podcast, Vish? We can Patreon it.
Yeah.
Yeah, patreon.com/Socratic Gamers.
Merchandise.
We can go to shop.myfire.com. You can pick up some tees off Teespring. I know if you checked out my Instagram, you saw some t-shirts already. A little bit of a hack. I got that at Penal. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't have time to wait for the order, but you guys can wait for the order.
Yeah. Cool.
It's not important. I'm teaching on Monday at Noon MMA.
All right.
Check that out. Yeah. What you got going on, Vish?
Nothing else. I don't know. Oscars tomorrow.
Yeah, all right, that's cool. We didn't talk about that. We'll talk about Oscars next.
Yeah, next week.
Next week, we're saving that one. Yeah. What's your favorite part of this podcast?
The question that you asked.
That's true. That's a really good one. All right. Yeah. Listen till the very end, because Vish blew me away with his answer to my philosophical question. I was like floored. I'd never heard that before. Maybe you've heard it before. Maybe you said it before, but I had never heard that before.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Let's start this bad boy.
Here we go.
One. And boom, we are back with another episode of Socratic Gamers. This is episode 41, divisible by 1, and 41.
Okay, sure.
We are here again with BJ the dog whisperer, and Vishal coughs a lot, needs water.
I think when you talk a lot, you do need that to lubricate the vocal cords.
I've never actually had that problem before, though. Remember the last week, like, I was like, wow, you really can't talk right now. You actually can't talk.
No, it makes sense. A lot of people who do that, a lot of talking, they do have water beside them.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Right.
So this is the show where we take on 5 things from the week that we thought were interesting and talk about our opinion of them. Does our opinion matter? No.
I mean,
does your opinion matter?
We're one person out of what? Or 2 people out of 7 billion of those. So.
Yeah, so listen if you want. Don't listen if you don't want. Okay, so our first topic of the week is... Go ahead, Vish.
So I got a couple things on Trump that happened this week.
Okay, cool.
So...
Trump trouble,
yeah. So I think it was like the week before there was like a shooting at a school.
Oh, yeah. What was that? Oh, man, that's so bad that we don't even know. It's like...
What was that?
That's a problem when it happens so much that people are like, oh, yeah, another shooting. Remember when the first one, like Columbine? And then it got that like whole press, like Columbine,
yeah,
you know?
a long time ago. But
yeah. But now it's like another shooting. You're like, oh, okay. Like, that's so horrible. I understand that, because if you lost somebody in the shooting, like, don't think I'm a cold person. I'm just saying it happens more often than not now.
Yeah.
So it's like the, not Florida, Las Vegas one?
No, I think it was Texas.
Texas, there you go. All right.
I believe it was Texas. But what I'm was trying to get to was like instead of dealing with the gun problem,
okay,
they're trying to push it on as some other thing as the cause. So
okay,
which was video games.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
which has been talked about since Columbine.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Do video games, influence people.
And no evidence
suggests
that it's video games.
That's true. Yeah. No. I studied this in psych before. We were taking social psych, and that was one of the questions. It was one of the chapters in the book, and they said no, it doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was one thing that was like, again, they're just going back and reiterating the same
ideas to like push a
nothing
whole
changing.
paradigm. Yeah, for sure.
Uh,
But I feel like they just need a scapegoat, right? You just need something to blame,
I
right?
know. But I think at this point, people have realized that's not. That made sense before because there wasn't any like research into it. But now there's so much that like no one has brought up video games.
So is it fake news or is it just old mindsets pushing like incorrect paradigms? You know what I mean? It's like when people are like, oh, let's watch the news. Well, that's a dinosaur kind of thing. Like if you look at social media like YouTube and stuff, or like even like Twitters and stuff, it's usually faster, you know. But I guess like one could say, well, the old argument would be that the news at least has like fact checking. You know, it's like, oh, you can't trust what you see on social media because the news fact checks. But now we're finding out like, well, they also have fake news, so they're just as incorrect as the people that they said they were, that were incorrect. You know what I'm saying?
I know. Yeah, but I don't think that's what I'm trying to get to. I'm just saying.
No, I'm just saying it's a divergent topic.
Yeah, they're just going back at it, same old thing. Anyways, that was one of the parts that happened earlier this week, and then another thing with Trump was he didn't do this. Like normally, he's just saying that I think we should add 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum, and all of a sudden the Dow Jones dropped over the past 3 days.
Over saying I think.
Yeah, I think we should add 25% tariff. So then, because of that, people are like, "Oh, they sell their."
Wow.
I think it was Bombardier and Caterpillar. Caterpillar. I think they have the most in the steel world.
Right.
And aluminum, so it could even affect iPhones. It could affect.
Wow.
If this goes through, like these gotta like sign and stuff.
Yeah.
Could affect even Tesla cars because a lot of that's made with aluminum, and I wonder if they're buying locally or they're buying.
It's funny how like the stock market works, you know, like they're obsessed with like watching the news and then like playing like stock market's like gambling, right? And like you adjust your some people wouldn't say it's gambling, they say it's like strategic problem solving, I guess, or like guessing. Not guessing, it's like statistics. Yeah. Guessing's still guessing. But so it's funny how like even the slightest thing can set them off like this. So it's like he's like, I think we should, and then boom, it dropped.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, but it would be pretty funny to like troll these people. If you were so powerful, you start trolling them like, oh, this is gonna happen, and then you watch it fluctuate up and down according to what you say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that was another thing. But like, it could potentially affect a lot of us.
What do you mean?
Like price, because he was trying to do it so that people wouldn't buy Chinese steel.
Okay.
And then they'd want to buy more local, like within the country, right?
Okay.
In America, right?
Yeah.
The funny thing is, all of Trump's buildings were made by Chinese steel.
Oh.
And they're not even number one. They're not even number one imports of steel into America.
Rough life. Okay.
I think that's what I heard on the news, that Canada is number one, and it could affect us.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
it could affect our economy.
It's weird how like economic systems are set up like that, where it's like a domino effect. One goes down, the others go down. You know.
Yeah.
And then you could see like you have to be very wary of like that's why I don't hold stuff like this against people, like people in government, because it's got to be very difficult to like. Every decision you make has like a crazy spiraling out impact, you know?
Yeah.
It's like they think it's like people are like, oh, well, just don't do this. But then it's like, well, you don't realize the impact that this, and this would have on it. You know what I mean? So like I think it's just people doing the best that they can. Also fighting against their own greed, also fighting against their own altruism, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, well, I'm not in that field. I can't really judge.
Mm-hmm. So we'll see how it goes throughout the week, because it did drop quite a bit points for Dow Jones. So
yeah, it'll probably pick itself up.
It might. We have to see.
You know, it'd be a crazy conspiracy if like he did that while working with them because he knew it would drop, and then you buy back the stock as it goes up. Like, you know what I mean? It's like you make it go down so that people could buy it, and then you like, never mind, I'm actually gonna cut taxes, and then boom, it goes back up, and then those people that invested when it went down make a lot of money.
Generally that could happen. Who knows? But I don't think you can do that though. It's not like insider trading kind of thing.
No, because he's just
working
setting
with them,
it.
You know what I'm saying?
True, yeah, but that's why it's a conspiracy. You know, that'd be a pretty good way to make money though. You know what I mean? Because like they say, the best time to invest is when the market's down.
Yeah.
You know.
Of course, but that's always the best.
No, that's what I'm saying. So it's like, so he'll just influence it to make it go down. It's totally speculative. There's no truth to this.
Yeah.
In case somebody's like, like, oh man, that's what they're doing. No, I'm just saying it would be a really good business plan if they did this. Like,
or a good greedy plan.
Greedy plan.
I don't know what a business plan.
Speaking of not greedy, unless you don't.
No, I think that was it for Trump. There's just a little quick news on that.
All right, so like to appreciate the Tao of life, we got to go negative. Now we got to go positive. So Brian Ortega, T City. It's funny when I first met T City. Not that I know him, but like I went to his seminar, and I went to the seminar for Henry Gracie, and then like this guy T City was there, like his number one like partner and like seminars and stuff, and like I was like, oh, who is this guy? Like he's this like young kid looking thing, and like he was teaching alongside Henner. Now he's becoming one of the best fighters in the UFC.
Oh
yeah, he's like I know you know nothing about Brian T City, so I'm gonna like fill you in. So basically he's like, he was such an underdog. He's been fighting his whole life. He I don't know if he's been in gangs, but he was like, he had some gang related stuff, when he was a kid, right? And then like he was like a bad kid because he grew up in the projects, like Section 8, where like all those like Kendrick Lamar, like Section 8.
Oh yeah,
he grew up there, and then like he was poor, then they got out, and then he started fighting and training in the UFC and stuff. Oh no, sorry, at the Gracie Academy. And like Henry would always be like, yo man, like be positive, like change your life and stuff, and then he met his boxing coach who also said the same thing, but he was battling against like, should I, roll with my homies, or should I like, be good, right?
Yeah.
But like he had the innate good quality inside of him the whole time. Okay. So he's fighting for the title shot. He's not fighting for the title. The guy who was fighting for the title, the champion, hurt himself, so instead of canceling it or like waiting, T City, who's number 3, is fighting number 2 to go up against number 1 later.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? So 2 and 3 are fighting, and the winner of this gets to fight number 1.
Oh, I see.
So he's undefeated right now.
Yeah.
So I like it because he's undefeated, because he's using the original principles of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, which is like, actually like Jiu-Jitsu, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu became like very sportive, but the original jiu-jitsu had like strikes involved, right?
Yeah.
So he comes from that, and then if you watch any of his fights, like he is like jiu-jitsu 101. Like you watch it and you're like, man, this guy is amazing, because he grew up with it, right?
Oh, I see.
So now that's not the important part. I mean, anybody's a good fighter. What's really cool is during his last fight where he headlined, so he had like the spotlight because you headlined, right? And he fought a big name. He used that as an opportunity to say that he wants people to be more positive and like love one another, and then he wants to use the UFC as a platform to get his message out there that people need to become better people.
Oh, okay.
That's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
And like because he grew up in the project, so like with the money that he earned from his last fight, and he re-signed the negotiation contract for UFC. What happened is he started his own T City Brian Ortega Foundation. So they use money to help underprivileged kids like get a helping hand.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I was an underprivileged kid, and I would have loved to have something like this when I was growing up. So it's weird how like through the darkness you see the light.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because he had like such a rough childhood. Not super rough, I mean like it's pretty rough. He's like in the projects and stuff, and then now he's like using it as a platform for good.
Yeah, and I mean anything to help like his community in a sense, right?
Yeah, it's really great, right?
It's really good. Yeah.
That's why it's super commendable, and it's funny because like, so I'm like watching all of his interviews, and so they say there's no atheists in foxholes, right? So like everyone who's in war believes in God. So like I've noticed that all UFC fighters are obsessed with God. Like nobody is like Joe Rogan-y, where like there's no God, it's all in your mind, because they need something to believe in order to make themselves fight better, right?
That's not true about war though. There's one guy that was
atheist. Well, I mean, all right, let's say 80-20. 80% believe he died. So we'll say 80-20. Okay, so like 80% believe in God because it's something to push them inspire better, right? So I also believe that spirituality, true spirituality, like enlightenment, where it's like you're not confused, is born through war. Not war, but like hardship,
Yep.
So like I'm watching his interviews and everything he's saying, I totally agree with. There's nothing that I'm like, oh, you're kind of wrong here. But it's only because you've been through the bad, so you know what's good.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He was saying like one really cool thing he said is like, he's like, social media is all negative. Like you see like a lot of negativity, but everybody, when you see like a starving child or something or somebody in need, you're like, oh man, like they could really use some help. He's like, everyone talks about it, but nobody's about it. Nobody's actually gonna go help. And I'm like, that's a real statement, you know what I mean? But it's like he only saw that through the hardship.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like I just think it's very commendable. You know,
I think it's really cool.
Like using his platform for good, and it seems like it actually comes from the heart. It doesn't seem like it's like, well, what's really interesting is it's like people can do good for two reasons. You can do good and delude yourself into thinking you're doing good because you're doing good, but you're actually doing it for selfish reasons. Only you will know. Or you'll do good and like it'll be from a good place in your heart because you have all the money, you have all the resources, and you're just like, man, I just need to give back. Like it doesn't really matter, you know, because that's what he's saying. He's like, I can already help out my family, and now it's like let's do some good in this world, you know, because I have a voice now.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh yeah. That is commendable.
And I could feel it emanating off him. Versus because it's like, you know, some people are like, oh, I want to do good. You know, like there's some motivational speakers, like I won't name them, but like some of them are like, oh, you can change your life. But it's like you're only saying that because you want them to buy tickets to your event so that you can tell them that they could change their life.
Right.
And they're like, look, I changed my life. But they changed their life off the hardship, off your broken back. You know what I mean? It's like by selling you a belief system, I will make my own money. So that's what I meant about like,
I see.
You can like, they seem like they want to help you, but really they want to help themselves. You know, but for him, it doesn't feel that way.
Yeah, no, I mean that's pretty good.
Yeah,
I don't know much about these people, so I mean it's interesting. That I mean a person like UFC fighter, you know, like that now has the opportunity, and I think a lot of people do that too. Like I know a lot of rappers that come back.
Well, like 50 Cent, yeah, he went to Africa.
I think a lot of them do. They go not just Africa, but like they do help their community. Then they realized about Africa. That was a whole different story for him.
That's true. Kendrick Lamar is a huge one about that too.
Yeah.
I was watching the Vice interview, and they're like, "Oh, we saw you donate all this money to the music program." He's like, "Oh, how'd you hear about that?" Because he kept it under wraps, right? He didn't want to tell anyone. But like, I think it was the principal who told the Vice News.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, "Yeah, I didn't."
See, I think I like that too.
That.
I think I like that when you do something, but you don't want to brag about it.
Yeah, it's real altruism.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
As soon as you say like, "Hey, check it out! I did this for the community,"
then
it's like, yeah, you just want to make your star brighter.
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
And that's where the motivational speaker I was talking about, where it's like, "Hey, come this like," they're like, "Okay, if I help my community, and then it'll cost me like 100,000, let's say, but then I could write a book about it and make 300,000. Let's do it." That's like negative, you know what I mean? Like, dang,
yeah. Yeah, you got to be careful of those kinds. Yeah, you got to be aware. But like, how do you know when someone does? You know what I mean? Like, someone's got to do it.
That's okay. So it's interesting. I was watching a well, this is a great segue into another topic, Carl Jung philosophy. So I was watching an interview, and they're saying that Carl Jung, it's like consciousness to become. All right, so consciousness. It just means like active awareness. That's how I define it. Active awareness. Because it's like, what does it really mean to be conscious? Like people say all the time, like, oh, your consciousness has to be shifted into this, blah, 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 right? And it's like, what does consciousness mean? Nobody knows it. Like 80% of people, 80-20 is like the general rule. It's like, it's sort of like saying like more than less, you know what I mean?
Right.
So 80-20. Side note, it's funny because when I was taking like business in school, I was so confused because when they say 80-20, I'm like, wow, how do they know this exact, like, I didn't realize it was like a metaphor. There's no real exact 80-20,
no,
but like everyone says 80-20 principle all the time. And I was like, dang, how did you calculate the 80? You're like, what kind of research went into this? Maybe it's like 75%. Like, how do you know it's 80? But then it's like, I realized I was being too freaking obsessed with like the literal. So anyways, so he was saying that consciousness, it's kind of a disease if you have too little or too much. So like in the beginning, we were unconscious, right? We're all unconscious beings. We don't know we're alive.
Okay.
Then you grow a little bit of consciousness, and then you get into this problem. Man, I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
Or I don't have this in my life. Oh, I could become better. You start wanting things because you're a little bit conscious. You're conscious of who you are.
Yeah.
Right? And then Carl Jung said that the cure for that is one of two ways. You could either subdue your consciousness through drugs and alcohol or doing bad things, refusing to grow up, right? Because you're like, oh, I don't want to become conscious anymore. So you become a man boy. You know, or you become more conscious, and then becoming super conscious, you defeat your lack of consciousness. So if you realize, okay, we all die, you become more conscious.
Okay.
Right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I'm a part of a universe that's bigger than I am. Then you become more conscious, and then you're less afraid of your low consciousness.
Okay.
You know, you overcome your insecurity by realizing the really important things. You become super consciousness, right? All right. So the funny part about Carl Jung is people who, so I'm using terms like this lowercase self, the higher self, consciousness, one in oneness, supreme being, you know, all enlightenment, right? So we come to this assumption that the gurus of India came and then they were like, these are the words and these are like the ideas that I'm going to teach here.
Yeah.
Right? Like you hear these words in like yoga and spiritual texts all the time, and usually it comes from like an Indian guru, right? These kinds of words. But what people fail to realize if they do the research is these are actually Carl Jung philosophies. So I heard Russell Brand talking about Carl Jung. So I'm like, okay, let me pick up a book and read about it, right? And then when I picked up the book and read about it, I'm like, oh, these are all the yoga philosophies that people claim are yoga, but they don't realize they're practicing psychology. That's why yoga works. Yoga works because you're actually doing self-psychology on yourself. So the problem, though, is that medical people say that Carl Jung is incorrect and we move past him, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's just because people thought he was like a racist. You know what I mean? And like so they thought he was a racist because he said how can the Jew, they thought he was like an anti-Semite because he's like, how can the Jews believe that they are the king of all people when God has multiple other people, right? It's a very like logical, conscious thing. It's like, why does this one race, one group believe they're more important than everyone else?
Right.
So he's labeled a friggin' Jew hater because of that. But it's like, no, I'm just becoming more conscious of what's really going on, you know? So I think that's why maybe he got like a little bit of slack. Maybe he was ahead of his time, I think. But like, it's funny how that happens. Like people don't do enough research, i.e. they don't become extra conscious and they fail to realize what's really going on, and then they become ignorant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you don't look past what you think, then you will never grow past what you are. You know? And you'll always think you're right. But I think the truly conscious people are the ones that are like, I don't know that I'm right. So logic, but there's a difference, right? You can be like, they're like, oh no, you're unwavering, you know? But it's like, no, like, I just need to understand more, and you need to make me understand. Right. You know, I think we talked about that in the last one about like, letting go of your thoughts. But yeah, I don't know. It's funny how until you look at history, you don't really realize. When you start to look at history, you realize where you've been and where you're going. You know what I mean? It's
it's interesting
because things repeat themselves. Like like movies, entertainment, sporting events. They were all like there thousands of years ago, just in different forms. Yeah. You know what I mean? We're doing the same thing. Like nobody changes. You know? Yeah.
That's very true.
Yeah. Speaking of no change, copycats for Apple.
Oh yeah. It's been going on for a long time, and then since the new iPhone 10.
But that's what I'm saying. They're trendsetters in the industry. Like Apple is like the best. I mean, maybe not tech-wise, like you were saying before.
Like not necessarily. They're not the first in certain software, but they are, I would say, in design. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sleek. Really everyone loves that. Yeah. Like the full face of the phone, right?
Yeah. So. Yeah, exactly. The full face, but the thing with that had a notch. I remember like when it first came out a few months ago, everyone's laughing. Oh, man, it's a notch. Like everyone, you know.
It's a notch.
That's the notch for the iPhone 10. This is for the cameras are. That's why
Oh, okay, yeah, I got you.
they call it the notch.
Okay, yeah.
Or the people call it the notch.
Okay, cool.
And then, I was like, oh, there's no way, like no one's gonna do that because that's like a stupid design.
Right.
And then I read a thing just the other day, and there's a bunch of these different phones now
Putting in notches?
Putting
no
notches.
way. But see, that's what happens, man. Like when you're so good at what you do, people are just gonna copy. Like imitation is the greatest form of flattery, man.
Yeah.
But you know what I say to that? Because like if I create an idea and then I notice somebody like copying that idea, I just say like, you'll just never do it as better than me. I believe you have to have so much confidence in yourself that it doesn't matter what other people do because you're so good at what you do. You're like, good luck. That's how I always like walk through all like, because my sister will always be like, she's like, oh well, what if this happens to you? What if this happens to you? Like, what if they kick you out or something? Blah blah blah. I'm like, yeah, I'll tell them good luck. Like, because you don't have me anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, it could be deluded self-belief, but everyone has to believe in themselves. I think everyone's got to believe in themselves so much and what they do that they should have the confidence to walk away from anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like I'm so important, but it's like help me out here. You know what I'm trying to say, right? It's like I'm so good at what I do,
right?
That like I don't even care about you. You know, it's like it sounds so dick, but it's not. I'm not trying to be dick. It's like it's hard to say it without sounding like a jerk. But it's like I'm so secure in my own stuff that it's like it doesn't matter what you do because I know what I got,
right?
And I know what I got's gold.
But
it's like, but how do you know you guys gold? I don't know, because I think it's cool, like, you know?
Yeah. I see what you're saying. There's probably some actual term.
But I've seen, like, a lot of interviews for artists. Like, I love watching artist interviews because they're so motivational. And all of them say the same thing. It's like, dude, I just had an unwavering belief in myself.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, even when my tracks weren't doing too great, it's like, it'll get better. I'll get better, you know?
Yeah, so you gotta...
It's I guess like you have to believe in your ability to do great things, you know, because it's like it might not be good now, but it'll be good soon because I know I'm that sick.
Yeah,
I have the capacity to. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. People out there, if you're listening, you have to believe in yourself, so you can just or don't. I mean, however you want to walk through this life, fully conscious or half conscious. You know, Carl Jung, segue back.
Right. It doesn't matter which way. We all die at the end anyways.
Yeah, that's true. What's that analogy? The story? I think we said this before, but like the Indian and the Alexander the Great.
Yeah.
You tell it. Because I heard it from you. I was like, oh, that's a really freaking enlightened way to say it.
What did I say? Oh, it's like... It's like everyone... Like, you're thinking you're the first one to reach the top of the mountain kind of thing. Like,
yeah.
There's already... so much flags already up there. Like you're not.
Oh yeah, that was an alternate one.
Is that the one?
No, that was an alternate one. You said that before too.
I don't know which one you're talking about.
You told me that one before, but the one I like is Alexander came upon an Indian guru, and then
I don't know if it was a guru. He's just a person. I think.
All right. Well,
I don't
I'd say
know.
he's a guru
Whatever it
he's
is.
enlightened.
Sure.
You know? So the Indian guru's like, "What are you doing?" And then Alexander's like, "I'm conquering the whole world." And then Alexander's like, "What are you doing?" "I'm just chilling." And they both laughed at each other.
Right, yeah.
Because they both knew that both were correct and incorrect.
Yeah.
It's like, however you want to look at life, man.
Yeah, both laughed at each other, thinking each of them are stupid.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's like, it's just different ways to look at life, man. Do you want to do things or not? Or maybe your experience is doing something. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like I think we have two different, like, I'd say I'm more pioneering. Nah, pioneering's too heavy. I'm more not creative. I'm more it's like pushing boundary. Like it's like I want to accomplish things.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Alexander.
Just I'm more Alexander.
More Alexander.
And you're more the Indian of the story. But you are Indian, yeah. So I mean, yeah. So like you're very much into like, oh, the life's experience is its own reward. Right. And I'm very much like, well, my reward is accomplishing what I want what I set out to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There's nothing wrong with both.
As long as you're happy, it's cool. But then you could have the nature of the opposite, and you're doing the other thing. So it's like you could be naturally an Indian. You're like, oh, I want to just chill, but your whole family's about conquer.
Mm-hmm.
Or you want to conquer, but it's like you're too chill.
Yeah.
So you can't conquer. So in both scenarios, like too much unrest. You know.
Yeah. So you gotta find where your kind of place of this.
You know where peace. Right? You know where peace resides when action and intention are one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I came upon that realization through it's gonna sound so hocus pocus, but like I came upon that realization through meditation, because I was like sitting there and I was like, why is this working? Why am I at peace? Why am I at rest?
Mm-hmm.
You know? And then I realized it's because my action was sitting there and my intention was to sit there. I was like, my action and intention had become one, and then I became at peace. It's sort of like if you're playing a game like basketball, your action and intention are one, you're in the zone, they say. Right? But if you're thinking about like what you got to cook for dinner, and then you're playing basketball, you're not in sync, and then you know,
mm-hmm.
you're that's when like suffering comes up. Like I don't even know if it's suffering. I guess they call it suffering's like it's sort of like a dissociation. If two things are not the same, if they're not going in the same direction, you have a conflict, and
mm-hmm.
then people call that suffering. But conflict's also good. You know what I mean? It's like conflict is like, oh, I want to be here, but I'm not there, so I need to push my actions to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm at conflict too, but I don't call it suffering. It's just stress,
mm-hmm.
I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not suffering. Maybe it's stress. Ooh, we came upon another secret of the universe right there. It's not suffering, it's stress. You know, people are like, oh, if the mind and body are not one, blah blah blah, then you will suffer. But that's not true. If the mind and body are not one, you will undergo stress. Your interpretation of that stress either creates suffering or it creates motivation.
Mm-hmm.
Bang bang.
Yeah, they're just adding on to.
So I agree with you. Like, I'm just adding on to it because I feel like we didn't define it enough. We're not fully conscious, Carl Jung again, because you need to push the conscious understanding to really become awake to what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Carl Jung, not yogic philosophy. Carl Jung came with it first. Didn't you say something that you saw that Carl Jung went to India, but he didn't want to interact with the gurus because he didn't want to distort his perception of what he thought?
I don't know if that was what it is, because again, I don't know about distorting necessarily that way.
Yeah.
Or
I'll cut the segment clip so that people will think I was correct. All right, sorry. So continue.
Or that. Again, this is probably the view of them thinking that he's a racist.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
That he doesn't want to talk to them because
he's too good for them.
Like, why would they have figured it out? You know, kind of thing.
True.
I don't know.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Again, we don't know what kind of character they were. I don't know if that matters. I mean, does his philosophies work? Kind of thing. Right?
That's what I'm saying.
Right?
Yeah, for sure. You know whose philosophies don't? All right. So, Sigmund Freud believes in like the animalistic nature. That's why he's like, oh, like sexual impulse rules everything,
mm-hmm.
right? Which is true on an animalistic level. So Carl Jung, his mentor was Sigmund Freud, and then they split up because Sigmund Freud was very close-minded. He didn't want anything to mess with his theories. So he's notoriously famous for always like not disproving, but like being like, I'm not gonna listen to you. Because if it didn't follow his paradigm, because he was so in belief of himself, right? Which is a bad version. Whereas Carl Jung was like, I actually think it's more like this. So that's why they split up. Sigmund Freud was all about the animalistic brain,
right?
Which makes sense if sexual impulse. He believed that like, oh, the reason why you want this is because of some sexual impulse. Mm-hmm. Oh, you have this tendency because of your sexual repression. Blah blah blah. And Carl Jung said, no, we have a secondary part to ourselves. S, which is the self that we are to our parents or to our friends, like your acting self, and the capital S, the higher self. Again, yogic philosophy people assume that lowercase and capital come from yoga. Not true, because they didn't even understand English. So you could make the argument that, oh, the yogis came up with this. Not true, because how would you have the lexicon to explain what it is your philosophy is. Maybe it's very similar, true, but you using self and higher case self, higher self, actually is a Carl Jung philosophy. Sorry, I just want to diverge back to that because.
So.
Wait. So then Carl Jung believed in the higher case self, which is the self-monitoring self, where it's like beyond your identification, and into like more your morals and like your true wants and stuff. You know what I mean? Sorry, you're saying?
So you're saying that he came up with it first, or that those terminologies?
He came up with it first. He said that he came up with...
Or the terminologies didn't exist in...
Oh, all right, so they didn't exist, and then he came up with the terminology, but the philosophy he came up with when he was a child. So when he was a little kid, he was like, Mom, I kind of feel like I have two selves inside of me. And they're like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, so it didn't exist before? Did they not know of this thing before?
No, nobody wrote it down. Nobody codified or turned it into a paradigm. I'm sure people felt it. They're like,
no, I'm like,
so
you're saying it was never there in India?
No. India. All right, so Carl Jung became a scholar and he made all his philosophies 17 years before the first guru of India came to America. So it might have been in India.
Oh, okay.
But what I'm saying is like
in America, the American version,
because everyone's all like spiritualist.
I think that's what we're trying to like.
That's what I'm trying to decipher. Like, because like the modern day yogi.
Yeah, I wanted to be more specific
here. Oh, I
see. I think people are gonna misunderstand that.
Oh, good. Yeah,
and then
okay.
take it as if he made it and not the other.
No. Okay, so we always talk about this, like how the Western yogi is different from the Eastern yogi.
Okay.
Right? Because like you've been to India. You're born in India?
No, I was born here.
Oh, you're born here, but then you lived in India.
For a very short time, yeah.
Yeah, very short time. But you go back and forth.
But so you've got your parents' influences who were from there, right? Yeah.
So like it's sort of like martial artists here. People who are martial artists here, they're like, oh my god, that's amazing. But then you go to Asia and they're like, oh, you're a bum. Right? So like I'm sure, like explain the Indian yogi, the Eastern yogi. Are they like praised or are they like kind of like bums?
Oh, here.
No, there.
Oh, there?
Yeah.
Oh, they're like bums. Yeah,
they're like bums.
Yeah,
but then if you look at here, it's like the Western yogi is all about being like glorified. They're like, oh my god, you're a yogi. You know? Oh my god, you're a martial artist. Oh, you're a 5th degree black belt. That's crazy. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, but like it's so esoteric. So this is why I became obsessed as a child. I loved anime, right? And I became obsessed with the esoteric because like in Western culture, they glorify these things so heavy.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, oh, you're like a master martial artist and you're a master yogi, right? But then if you go to like the Eastern places, it's not that special, you know? It's special, but it's like it's not glorified as much as people think. You know what I mean? And like and then becoming a, I don't even like to say it, but becoming a master martial artist and like a highest registered yogi, it's sort of like, well, not the highest actually, I'm one more ahead of me, but to be a registered 500-hour yogi, it's like you get the prestige of like, wow, you're a 500-hour yogi and you're a master martial artist, like 5th degree black belt, blah blah blah. But it's like you don't really know what that means. Like I'm still me.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
I see
it just means that I've danced in the esoteric longer than you. So the esoteric is basically the unknown.
Yeah.
So it's like just because you don't know what it is doesn't make it special. It just means you don't know what it is. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean,
so that's what we're trying to dispel here. It's like oh, nice, you got saved. So that's what we're trying to dispel here. Sorry if you're listening to this, just the audio. Vish is playing a video game, so I keep reacting to the game because it's so interesting. So that's what we're trying to differentiate here. Like the Eastern yogi is like, it's not that special, but the Western yogi believes it's super special. But it's only because one has not seen the other. So like if you go to the East, they're all gonna be like, oh, businessman, oh, you're amazing. But then you go to the West and they're like, ew, businessman. You know what I mean? It's like, that's the Tao of life, you know? Like just because you haven't had one, just like the unknown or something, you know? Like,
well, they always want
grass is always greener.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, it's, so most of the people's ideology changing here, but they want to be more Western on the other side now, right?
Yeah, true.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. Yeah. And then they're going to hit a tipping point, and they're going to like, oh, we got to go back to our roots of being
like
Eastern.
It'll go
the
back
Tao,
and forth.
the yin yang, the balance of nature.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, if that will keep happening, if someone else is prospering more, you want that too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
as a country is like, they're,
so like the East is not prospering economically, so they glorify the economics of it. Mm-hmm. The West for the economics. The West is not prospering spiritually, so they look to the East for spiritual guidance.
Right.
But this is where we diverge back to our real point. We think that all this stuff comes from the East. Yes, it does. Like similar philosophies, but our true guide in all this is Carl Jung. That was a big eye opener. If you read a short introduction to Carl Jung on Amazon, that's what tipped me off, because it was like, wow, we totally are looking into the wrong things,
Yeah.
Because it's like I just don't get. It's like the Eastern people, they didn't speak English was not their native tongue, so how would you create such a very abstract terminology for an abstract concept without having a thorough understanding of what words mean?
Well,
how could you differentiate between self and self? How could you do that?
Right, but
it's like if I have
it's not like English was not in India. They were with the British rule. It was there for a long time.
Yeah, but do you think these bum yogis were so educated in English
I don't know.
come up with...
I'm not saying that this is a fact or not. I'm just saying...
No, but that's what I'm saying.
India
the assumption is that...
Didn't have English before.
No, of course. Yes. But what I'm saying is the highest level of abstract thinking to come up with terminology or a lexicon that's so intricate that they could describe such an abstract concept as lowercase self and capital self. Wouldn't you say to say self and self is super abstract. If you think of it on a 5th grade level, you'd say something like your actor and your monitor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They wouldn't come up with self and self. But that's, again, a Carl Jung thing. He came up with capital S and lowercase s. Yeah. All right. So, you got anything more to say about that? To rant?
No.
All right, cool. So, our 5th now, because we usually talk about 5 things, I think from now on, I kind of want to pose a philosophical question as the last one.
Sure.
To for always our 5th will be something philosophical, because I like to wax philosophical, and I haven't done that in a while. So my question is, would you kill one person to save 1,000?
Kill one person to save 1,000?
Yeah, I saw this in we've all heard it before, but I was watching interviews of other people, and somebody, I think it's Vogue, they asked the person.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, wow, what an interesting question. Yeah, so would you kill one person to save 1,000?
I think it depends on who that one person is.
Ooh, okay. You just, all right, that's cool. All right, so I've never heard it. That's funny. Usually people are like, no, I wouldn't, or yes, I would. And then you're like, well, it depends on who the person is. I'm like, okay, I never heard that before. All right, so what do you mean? Explain that.
It's someone you dislike?
Oh, it depends on the context.
Or it's someone you like.
You blew my mind. Okay, that's funny. That's actually really funny.
Okay.
I appreciate that a lot. So would you kill one person to save 1,000? Okay. Okay. This is the lowercase s speaking right here. Would I kill one to save 1,000? Okay, let me look at the pros and cons. Let me look at the mental accounting. The higher case s goes, well, who are the 1 and who are the 1,000? What's the context? That's a higher consciousness thought right there, because it's well, all right, if it's one good guy and then 1,000 rapists, well, the answer is easy.
You're right. Yeah.
But nobody thinks that way. Everyone thinks wow. You can actually observe how society is as a whole just by asking that one simple question. Who thought outside of the box? It's really funny. The education system doesn't allow you to think that way.
Right.
Because as soon as they're 1 or 1,000, they want a lowercase s answer. They want a superficial one. But then as soon, because I definitely remember like being the oddball in class, being like, well, what about this? You know, and they're like, oh, you're just wasting our time. But that's actually a really true thought. Nobody's ever thought of that before. It's like, well, what if they were 1,000 rapists?
Yeah.
The answer. Oh my God, you're blowing my mind right now.
Yeah, even that case, or even who that person is, you're going to kill too, right?
Yeah, it's true. Wow, it's always that's the moral lesson of the week. It's like always look at the context, because yeah, you could save 1,000, but who are those 1,000 and who are the one?
Yeah, exactly.
But if it's 1,000 good people and one rapist, well, it's easy.
Yeah, it's easy.
Dang. All right, we're gonna end with that. Context is king. But context is king. Back to Carl Jung. You got to become a higher consciousness and don't reside in the lower one.
Right.
Because if you reside in the lower one, you don't have all the facts and you're just like ignorant. Because all the people that answer that question, now that I look at it, after you said that, I'm looking at all the people that answer that question, I'm like, wow, they're all ignorant. Even I was ignorant. I was like, yeah, I would easily kill the one to save the 1,000. And when you said that, I'm like, well, actually, what does Vishal mean? Supreme consciousness. So you just lived up to your name right there.
Okay.
Because friggin', I didn't even think about that one. And if you are listening to this podcast and you thought of that one, you are supreme consciousness level 2.
Yeah.
But I'm not.
Deserve a badge.
You deserve a badge. I didn't think about that one. That's so funny. That's going to change my whole perspective on that question.
Okay.
Context is king.
All right.
So until next time, get learned, because ignorance is not bliss. Or it can be bliss.
It can be bliss, yeah.
But ignorance is ignorance.
Yeah.
Do you want to be called ignorant? It's up to you.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I don't.
No?
But even saying that I don't shows how ignorant I am, because I am ignorant. Paradoxes. I wonder how many people, like, you know what's funny? Like, it depends. Like, if you're listening to this, if you understand what it is we're talking about, it completely makes sense. But then if you don't understand what's going on, then like it already shows, and you're probably you've already turned it off. You're like, I'm so confused. You know, like they're just talking in circles. It's total BS. Not really, if you understand the layers of reality.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
Not to make it sound pretentious or anything. I'm just saying it's like friggin' algebra and discrete mathematics.
Right.
Just different layers to things.
Yeah.
And if you want to know what it is we're talking, if you hear it and you're like, there's some truth to this, but I don't understand what they're saying, you can check out godlightmyfire.com/books, read up on those suggested books or docs.
Yeah,
they have a whole thing, resources there. You can check out stuff that we've watched and read and seen, and like.
Yeah. Well, I don't read, but yeah, as I learned off from watching.
That's true. It's funny how like education goes, right? Like I'm obsessed with reading because like.
Right.
I was never, though. I think the first book I read cover to cover was Twilight.
Okay, yeah.
Right? And like,
I think probably mine was probably Harry Potter, I think.
Oh, so you've read books before?
No, I mean, but these aren't like, are they really consciousness books?
No, they're not. They're not. Well, could be.
You can have
analogy,
certain things. You can. You can learn some things. Yeah.
But I assumed that all books were like Harry Potter or Twilight, so I was like, oh, there's no point in reading, right? I gotta watch some docs or something, right? And then I stumbled across like this whole like it's not esoteric, this whole like left field philosophy and like spirituality books, you know. But some of it's total garbage though. Like you can read some stuff and like they talk about completely unrealistic things. You know, they're like, there was once a Brahmin who was able to hold his breath for 6 hours. I'm like, I don't think so. Maybe. I don't think so, though.
It just doesn't seem probable.
You ever hear of light eaters? I forgot what the exact word is. They basically...
It's like an anime character or something. Like a Bleach character or something.
No. That's weird. True. Yeah, you're right. No, I'm obsessed.
Yeah.
So, like, I have the anime friggin' hard programming. That's why I came up with that name. That's not the actual name.
Okay.
So basically what they do is they don't eat food. They create sustenance off of sunlight. They think they're plants.
Yeah.
That's not real.
I think we've had arguments over this. I remember bringing up some of these kinds of stories.
Yeah, but that's when I was lower conscious. I was like confused. I was like, man, I gotta believe.
I don't believe this.
You know what's funny? Like the path of true understanding, you have to go through ignorance. Because I remember the whole time when I was studying all this stuff, and I believed that the esoteric was real. Some of it's real, some of it's not. So like,
you really got to figure out.
But I was so into it, and we were having arguments about like, that's not real. I'm like, dude, it's totally real because whoa, you can totally chi energy, chakras, blah blah blah. And I was like obsessed. You know what really fixes that? The Tao. So what I mean by Tao, you have to go like artistic license, and then you have to go like scientific license.
Right.
So you gotta fact check everything. You know what I mean? But the hardest part for people to do is fact check what they think they know, because they don't want to break their belief in themselves.
Yeah.
That's why I said you have to have unyielding belief in yourself. That you're like, it doesn't matter what I believe in I know I'm good.
Right. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so it's like, okay, I'll just learn how to do it better next time, you know? So it's like, although I went through that whole phase where I was obsessed with like the esoteric BS, now that I'm in the science mode, I'm fact checking everything I thought I knew with science, and then showing the parallels between them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, Neil deGrasse Tyson's really good for that, because he uses like a lot of spirituality but explains it through science.
Yeah.
You know, one of my favorite ones is carbon, hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, and something else. There's like 5 elements that are in you as a person, and then the 5 most common elements in the universe are those exact same ones. And the person, I posted on Instagram, the person's like, oh, we are the universe and the universe is me. It's like, yeah, but that's a spiritual, I was gonna say yogic philosophy. It is a yogic philosophy, like, but you get what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
It's like, I like Neil deGrasse Tyson for that, because he's like using.
Yeah. I know what you're saying. Yeah, it's scientific understanding that's.
Yeah, you gotta fact check, man.
Yeah.
I don't believe in like maybe it's true now. Like, I have a skeptical. Joe Rogan calls, or Brendan Schaub, skeptical hippo eyes.
Okay.
So like I'm putting those on now. It's like, okay, like so a good one. All right, so brick breaking. Everyone in martial arts is obsessed with brick breaking.
Yeah.
Even when I was in, I was like, man, you gotta like channel that energy. It's all about a vibration. It's all about tuning in.
Yeah.
Right. And then I remember you and Jared were like, no, it's science. And I was like, no, man, it's all about like timing. You're like, you're focused, you know. And then like now
I think me and Jared did see this. Like, there's another bottom brick there that you're using.
So okay. So if you don't know,
yeah.
In order to break a brick, you have to lift the brick that you're breaking, and it's gonna essentially hit against the bottom brick. So people were like, oh, like, you know, you have to channel your energy, you have to become one, like, synchronicity, listen to the, you know, become in tune in order to break it, clear your mind. And then it does have something to do with clearing your mind, true, because you shouldn't hold back. If you don't believe you're going to break it and your mind is full, you're going to pull back, you know?
Right, yeah.
But you guys were saying, like, well, don't smash it against the other brick. And I was like, well, you have to. You know, but in my head, like, I didn't put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah,
so,
that's
like,
what we kept saying.
Yeah, and then you add the science behind it. Now I can break bricks, like, easy, you know? And, like, before it was so hard because I had to, like, let me meditate before I hit this brick. And then now when I do it, I'm like, pop, pop, pop. Like, people are fascinated, but I'm like, and then what I like to do is, like, I don't like to leave them on the fascination. I like to, like, explain the science behind it, because if you don't, then they're going to think you're a guru.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
That's not cool.
No.
You know?
That's not cool.
But it's funny because, like, the people that knew about this, like use the meditation to break the bricks before, when they see me, like, do these tricks, or, like, they see me explain it, they get so pissed. Because, like, it's like you broke their belief system. And it's like, bro, man, like...
Yeah, but
you have to believe in yourself so much that it doesn't matter what's right or wrong, because you'll just gravitate towards the right.
Yeah.
You know? The truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else to say?
No, I mean, we hit all their points, I guess. I don't know.
Final thoughts?
Context.
Context is king. Yeah, I like that one too. That's a good one.
That, yeah.
Context will show you the truth.
Yeah.
Right? If you don't have the context, you have a diluted truth, because it's your truth.
Yeah.
And your truth is not actually people say, like, oh, your truth is the only truth. That's ignorant. Right? Because it's like, yeah, it is the only truth. That's true. But it's like, what level of truth are you operating on? If I honestly believe I'm a fox, does it make me a fox? Hell no. Because science says no.
Yeah, and I kept saying that to you too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. You just gotta, I don't know.
You gotta man up and understand that you're wrong sometimes. It's the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
Realize you're wrong and realize we're wrong. Until next time. Listen to the wrong podcast. This one.
Yeah.
All right. Take it easy.
Take it easy.
Bye-bye.
Peace.